Well, we were all over the place this morning. I played this 3 times and not got it on the air. Let's give it another try. Right, just so you know, it is 8:42. I've punched all the wrong buttons. Perhaps because I'm a bit discombobulated this morning, because to hell with the headlines and the front pages, which are all over the place, and none that agree today. Just shows you nobody has identified what serious news there is around. The most important headline to me is that former Mayor Stephen Catlin passed away on the weekend. Stephen was a breath of fresh air in this community. He was a totally honest politician, and there aren't many of those around. He served his community proudly and effectively. He was mayor 2 years ago and showed leadership coming out of COVID and lockdown that was badly needed and was lacking in most areas of local government. Stephen not only stood up for our rights, but he held the executive to account. He made sure that the scrutiny committee did its job and asked questions, searching questions of the executive. Why, for instance, Lewis was in default of paying taxes. And by golly, you should have seen the excuses coming out. Not one matched the other. He was fearless in standing up for what he believed was right and representing we, the citizen, in our rights and what we are able to do or not do. But more than that, he actually got his fingers dirty, because he and 1 or 2 other volunteers would look after the flower beds that we see around Lewis, culminating in a strip of land between the House of Friendship and All Saints Centre, which we dubbed the Secret Garden. And it was a display of floral beauty done by Stephen himself, because nobody else cared. And he was an independent for most of his political life. And as an independent, he did a remarkable job. This last time around, because of the cost and because his health was failing even then, he looked at each party carefully to see what they stood for, and eventually decided that the Labour Party were the only people that were making any positive suggestions at all, and joined them. The electorate abandoned him, and we should all hang our heads in shame that we did so. Stephen Catlin didn't deserve that. He didn't deserve to go to his grave rejected by us all. And I am coining this phrase, the Catlin factor, to stand for independence, and not for the slavish way that all our councillors, not all of them, it's a generalisation, that most of them just follow the party line. I'm a Lib Dem, I'm a Green, I'm a Conservative. Well, shame on all of you. What I want to hear from you is, I am an independent, and I represent the people that live in this town and live in this district. That's what I want to hear, and I don't hear it from anybody. Except Stephen. And one or two more. And Stephen is now gone. We are all the poorer for his passing. But we are going to be even poorer because he is not there to take a stand on a whole host of issues as an independent. Yes, he passed away, but we took away from him in his final months on this planet the right to be an independent. We have made it too difficult for people to be independent. And as a consequence, we've got no independence at all. No fresh thinking. This town is beginning to fray at the edges because it has no leadership. Stephen, when he was mayor 2 years ago, showed that leadership at a very difficult time as we came out of COVID lockdown. And he was a man to be respected and to be counted. And if we don't learn anything, I am dubbing what Stephen Catlin stood for the Catlin factor. And I expect local councillors, local parties, except I don't believe in them, to toe the line and to follow the principles which Stephen Catlin set as mayor, as an independent politician, and as somebody who cared deeply for his community. The Catlin factor, you remember it, because we're going to remind you about it from here on in. If Stephen has a legacy, it will be the Catlin factor, the fact that from the grave he could act as a true opposition to the governance we so sadly lack in this part of the world. R.I.P. Stephen Catlin. You will be missed by me because you are a friend and a colleague, and indeed a neighbour. But without knowing it, the people of this town will miss him because of what he stood for and what he did, and for which they only gave him a kicking in his final campaign. I hope that you all hang your heads in shame that we could treat a man dedicated to his community so badly and so poorly. Stephen Catlin, Mayor. Stephen Catlin, Councillor. Stephen Catlin, Independent. And no greater tribute can I pay to him than that. Okay. Okay. Newspaper headlines. The Times. The unions lambaste Labour over naive energy plan. Now, each Wednesday, our energy correspondent and expert, Stuart Dolby, presents a program called Energy Matters. And he has always been ahead of the game in this last few months as we face crisis after crisis in the energy sector. Undoubtedly, Stuart will have his own view on Labour's energy plan, whether it's workable or whether, as the unions suggest, naive. The Times lead story about the GMB and Unite unions, which both back Labour, criticising the party's proposed ban on new drilling licenses for North Sea oil. Shadow Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds is quoted as saying the party's plan to allow energy extraction to continue until 2050 would protect the jobs of those working within the sector. The paper also reports more than 100,000 households face a squeeze on their finances as mortgage lenders increase rates. It says Santander and TSB increased their rates over the weekend, with Coventry Building Society set to increase its rates tomorrow. The Daily Mail. A record demand for 35-year mortgages as rates keep rising. The Mail has signed up to mortgages of 35 years or more, or says buyers have signed up to mortgages of 35 years or more as interest rates soar. It notes that this will mean homeowners running up thousands of pounds more debt on the interest over the lifetime of the mortgage. Under the header, This Morning Meltdown, space is also found to preview a piece inside the paper about Holly Willoughby, who's returning to ITV's flagship daytime program today. That's following the scandal surrounding her former co-host, Philip Schofield. Deary me. Talk about a storm in the teacup, that one. The Sun. Phil, I won't watch Holly. Ha ha ha. Who cares what you watch, Phil? And who cares about you and Holly, for that matter? It's typical of the way that the media industry gets itself into a lather over things which nobody else gives a fig about. But because it has got the power to attract, makes us all think that Holly Willoughby and Phil, what's his face, Schofield. Yeah, Schofield. Willoughby. Will be too devastated to tune in on Monday morning after Schofield resigned from ITV. Oh, come on. It'll be a 5-day wonder. People will be saying in a couple of weeks' time, as I just did. Phil who? Holly who? They're not unique, these people. There are hundreds of talented presenters who would love to just have a go. So why are we worried about these two disappearing? God only knows. Just shows the nonsense. that our society is in. The Mirror, act now to stop TV horror. The Mirror says, a warning from infectious disease expert, Professor Robert Wilkinson, that a tuberculosis pandemic could threaten the UK is in the frame. The paper's health editor reports from South Africa speaking to TV survivors. The Guardian. Tory austerity left Britain hugely unprepared for COVID, say unions. Once again, politically driven ideas and thoughts. Does that mean anything? Okay, difficult to say. The Guardian says, a claim from the Trades Union Congress that the UK was left hugely unprepared for the pandemic due to years of austerity is under review. Comments aimed at the policies of governments left by David Cameron and George Osborne. The paper has approached both men for comment, and a government spokesperson said it had provided around £400 billion of support during the pandemic to protect lives and livelihoods. I'm not quite sure what the unions are saying here. From the front pages, it's difficult to say. The Daily Telegraph, lockdown benefits a drop in the bucket compared to the costs. The Telegraph continues its recent focus on the impact of COVID-19 policies by highlighting a study that examined the efficacy of the UK's first lockdown in spring 2020. The paper's headline states the study concluded that the lockdown benefits were a drop in the bucket compared to the costs. So we saved nothing. The Metro. 999 heroes under attack. Basically, the paper says attacks carried out on ambulance workers with 9,500 incidents in 5 years in a report. Staff successfully campaigned for sentences for attacks on emergency workers to be doubled as a deterrent. But as the paper, there is still an issue with perpetrators not being charged. Here we go again. The police just ignore. The Eye. Generation A1 is the most fearful of losing their jobs to robots. So what it's calling Generation AI, Generation Artificial Intelligence. In other words, the generation is going to have to face up to artificial intelligence as being as important now as it is, and couldn't be more important. It says its own research about attitudes towards artificial intelligence showed that more than half of 18 to 24-year-olds told the paper they are concerned the technology will damage their employment prospects. Yeah, how do you vie against a robot for a job? The Daily Express, Rishi, I will do what it takes to stop boats. The issue of the illegal asylum seekers raises its head again, and Rishi Sunak says is to vow to do everything to curb the migrant crisis. Well, you can vow all you want, but if you don't actually have policies to put in place, you're in trouble. The Financial Times is one of the headlines there is Saudi Arabia seeks to boost oil price with an output cut of 1 million barrels a day. Basically, like any market on supply and demand, the oil market prices depend upon how much oil is available. And the Saudis are able to play fast and loose with making that happen because they own so much. There's news that Saudi Arabia will cut oil production, which will have a knock-on effect on the international market. Also reports Labour is set to receive a £5 million financial boost from the former boss of a car glass repair firm to help it fight the next election. There we go. Daily Star. Chill the beers, slap on the sunscreen, and roast all week. We are oven-ready Brits, says the Star. We're oven-ready Brits, the Daily Star leads off on the news that temperatures in the UK could hit 27 degrees this week. Well, the forecast locally is for today hit 20. But there is a redeeming factor in as much as there's a mild breeze, which keeps things cool down. So that's the front pages. The temperature is expected to hit 20 degrees. It's only 12 degrees centigrade at the moment, but it is going to get hotter and hotter, not only as the day wears on, but as the week wears on. So do be careful, as heat can damage your health. Anything locally that we should be aware of? Let's see. Teenager stabbed in Sussex. In a Sussex car park. The teen was stabbed after an altercation with another person. Oh dear. We are starting as you don't agree with somebody, get into a row, pull a knife. Crawley teenager was 19 and he stabbed a victim in the car park after altercation. That's the main story locally. Oh dear, if I sound a little down, if I sound a little skeptical, it's because I am. It is difficult to know exactly what is going on with our leaders. It is difficult to know exactly where we're headed at the moment. But all that can be fixed, in my opinion, with leadership, with a firm idea, rightly or wrongly, of where we're going and what we should be doing. It's 9:05. Time for us to take our break, even though we started late. Take our break and then come back at 9:30, when the first thing that we'll do is to look at episode 5 of The Bloody Past of a Tiny Town. A reminder of those who have lived here all their lives and some of the key points and the challenge of organizations determined that the old shall go and the new, the brave new world, won't eventually need soldiers. Yeah, not in our lifetime, I fear. Okay, we'll be back in a little while, perhaps with a more positive tone. We'll be back at 9:30, in fact. Until then, for this moment, let's just say toodle pip, lick our wounds, and see where we're at, what we're doing, and whether there is any chance whatsoever or hope for the human race. Oh, dear, dear, dear. What cynicism. What cynicism. Well, yes, there it is. Okay. Back shortly.